Hi, I'm Michelle Bingert, Managing Editor of Quality. I'm here today with Grace Duffy. Grace has more than 45 years of experience in business and process improvement. She's a Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belt, ASQ Fellow, and Distinguished Service Medalist. Today she's here to discuss the results of our 2021 State of the Profession Survey. Grace, thank you for being here today.
Michelle, I am delighted to be asked to comment, and I really appreciate the survey that Quality Magazine provides every year. I think it's a really great cross section of our profession, and it really did help me understand some of the impact of this last year and a half with COVID. And it made me question or wonder, I guess, more anything, some of the trends between the pre-COVID and the post-COVID, because we all know that the COVID virtual probably has changed the way we're going to do business in the future. I'm really glad to see the breadth of the table of contents. Most of these questions I pretty much recognize from last year's session when you also asked me to take a look at it. I appreciate ClearSea's research. They did a great job last year helping me and working with me on this analysis, and I know that they'll be able to do the same thing. Most of the demographics were relatively normal. I was surprised on slide, not surprised, but actually happy on slide number 7, where we talk about the job function. It's interesting at the lower end of this range of respondents that there are no consulting engineers who have self-identified as such. I know I'm starting to see that title in people who respond to me on a webinar or where I get a chance to meet with people or see their designation on their emails. There's a good management representation. And to me, that's an indication of who's drawn to Quality Magazine, which I think is fantastic. And you've got a great loyalty in this discipline with enough loyalty to respond to the survey. So I'm really pleased to see that. The slide on number 8, quality manufacturing involvement, is probably a self-filtering audience where we look at the quality manufacturing initiative involvement, where quality manufacturing is very involved, 55%. Again, I think we may be self-filtering because those of us in quality and understand the value of what you do in Quality Magazine are going to call us in and hold us to our monthly review of what you offer. And then we talk about the departments with the quality focused roles, certainly manufacturing. And I'm so glad. Now I'm a little bit disappointed that manufacturing is only 78%, although there's probably a big overlap with the next function of operations, which is 64%. So if you were to add the overlap of the two and then the supply chain into 39, you're getting the predominance of the respondents. And I think that's really good. It's nice that there's some for IT and marketing, and thank goodness there are some for finance. We certainly need to understand what goes on. And then some who sort of identify separately, and that sort of made sense. Now, it's interesting, the span of control, the number of people supervised in the years in industry and supervisory responsibility, the span of control for supervisors is interestingly low. And I would love to compare that with previous years, whether that has changed because of the change in employment during COVID, or whether that is a trend that's coming up. I remember my years in IBM where manufacturing span of control was, I think, a little bigger than that. And I, in the services environment and in the professional design environment, was more to 11 to 20 people. I normally had 9 to maybe 14 or 18 people, at the most maybe 21. So the audience is also very long term. We can see there are, however, some good newer entrants, and I'm really glad to see people moving into the industry, because I do worry later on about some of the skills training questions, and I'm really glad that they're in the survey. So let me move on and take a look. I was looking at slide number 11, where the manufacturing involvement, where the industries, the different industries and the products are pretty well spread out. And I think that's good. It's not heavy automotive, although we see some of the demographics later being heavily in the North Mideast. And I guess that's not surprising, but it does look pretty well spread out. And that's a good thing. It's also, if I look at company revenue, almost bimodal from the very large to the and mature emerging to the medium. There's not as much in that large medium to larger range. And that, I don't know that it's significant, but it just caught my eye. It was a good graph to look at. And then if I look at the size of the companies in the COVID environment, this one says that more than half of the respondents' companies employ 500 or fewer employees, including all locations. Quality staff will remain mostly consistent. And then the real question was, let me get this thing. Did the staff of your quality operations team vary by the end of 2021? And you can see that 52% remain the same. And for expected 2021, remaining the same. The businesses are trying to maintain, and I'm hoping that that's because of their concern for the worker and not just simply the state of the company, although I'm happy to have it be both. I think that's wonderful. Then if we come into the production locations of where people are producing, 100% of the respondents have plants in the United States, and then it sort of goes on down to other countries. I'm curious, and you don't need to answer right now unless you want to, but whether Quality Magazine is available in other than English editions. And that was just the question that came up to me at the time.
Yeah, it is only English at this time, so that
I
makes sense.
wondered, it kind of looked like that may be the case. All right, that's good. Thanks. I appreciate that, Michelle. Then I kind of skipped over into the satisfaction with role and compensation. The job factor impacts, and there are some good options for the impacts here on slide number 16. And of course, COVID's to be expected, and it's number one with 48%. I mean, I had the same problem as an independent service provider. Frankly, without being able to travel at the level of management that I work with, I've pretty much stayed home and done volunteer work with my professional societies for a year, but that's okay. I find it disturbing that the skilled labor shortage is so high. It is the second most impactful job factor at 45%. And we are hearing this issue of the translation of skills and the issue, and this comes up later on internal training versus buying skills from outside. Now is a really good opportunity for technical and vocational colleges to offer programs for certificates and certifications. I know continuing education departments are out there. I was part of one at Trident Technical College in South Carolina for about 5 years and loved it. It was a phenomenal organization. And I wonder if organizations out of the government, the agencies like the old manufacturing extension programs, still exist and whether they're being ramped up now as we move out of the COVID and start increasing our employment again. Now, yeah, compliance may tighten with the administration change from the previous presidential administration to the new one, and that's to be expected just with the differences in perspective. I'm also aware that environmental concerns are probably going to be a higher priority going forward. So we'll see, we may see next year or the year after in your survey that these will continue to maybe rebalance a little bit. And then I'm curious about the job factor importance on slide number 17, whether this has changed over the past 3 years. What we're seeing here is the job overall importance factors. And the job overall importance, 46% top box are very, very happy, and the job itself is very important. And then we get down to the importance for opportunities for advancement at the bottom, where positive is only 24%, where yeah, somewhat important is 36. And then we get sort of medium at 24, not important at all is at 11% or negative 11 and negative 4, which says some people really aren't all that excited about their jobs, but that may be okay. And I may be reading the slide wrong. We always know that there are some people, for whatever reason, are either waiting for retirement or they really have another life that is more valuable and they cherish the job to help fund other activities. And when I go to slide number 18, the job factor satisfaction, if I look at the bottom again for opportunities for advancement, the very last of the top box scores that are listed on the graph, there is a difference here so that only 19% consider their job satisfaction as very important, although 24% in opportunities for advancement consider it in itself important. So it's interesting, just the difference. I'd be curious to get under the covers on that one, on the difference between the two. Then if I come down a little bit farther into job concerns, and here we start with the skills. The very top job concern on slide number 19 is improving skills and the quality of the workforce. And there are 57% are concerned about this. Frankly, I wish it were higher, but that's okay. I didn't get a vote. But I'm curious that improving skills and quality of workforce is right at the top. I'm delighted that it is. I'm curious about what companies are doing to improve and provide internal skills enhancement programs. I know some of my clients are talking very specifically about that. I'm asked, or before COVID kind of shut us down on airplanes, I was asked to fly to a number of places to do on-site training, be it either in the behavioral training or in the quality tools and project management sorts of skills in the technical areas. Again, I would hope that the companies are working with their local vocational and technical schools or using internships and apprenticeships. So if we look at that one, if I slipped down into talent recruitment, and I moved into another section here under skills recruitment and talent recruitment, skills development. You can tell my interest. I retired from IBM as head of corporate technical education, so I really clue in on skills. It's kind of a hot thing for me. But the first thing in talent recruitment, job search engines and boards, they're hiring from outside, or they're bringing in temporary agencies. Now they're looking at college and high school job fairs and recruitment. Now they're starting word of mouth. You don't get down into internal recruitment until the fifth highest response. What is it? And I'm curious. They're still trying to buy it outside. And I question the pool of available skills. Can that pool of available skills meet the demand? If we are not going to be looking at our own internal people for raising the skill level and from promoting within, which we know is a huge job satisfaction priority. However, if we look at the company and improvement focus, woohoo, 16%, the highest response says training, certifications, and advancement. So I'm really hoping that even though the concern is there, they are still looking at maybe swapping from having to buy it outside to approaching the internal. And also on this slide number 24, I see that there's not a whole lot of variation in the alternatives from training and certifications and labor shortage and hiring new labor, all the way down to accountability and documentation. Although in all honesty, I'm kind of sad to see that only 2% of the respondents are concerned about holding people accountable and in updating documentation. And I hope I'm misreading those responses. I'm going to swap a little bit farther into embracing new technology. It's interesting how people are going to embrace new technology. 41% are going to wait until others successfully use it. None of us at this point are at the bleeding edge. We really have to be careful with our nickels and dimes right now. There are some innovators that are willing to be one of the early leaders, and I'm really glad to see this, although very few are likely to be the last. I think we're realizing that we can't wait much longer. The world is changing. And then if I go into technology involvement in slide number 27, at least half, if not more, of the report say their companies are currently using automation and cloud computing. We almost can't resist doing that. We almost have to. Large respondents, 60%, currently use automation and cloud down. Not as many in augmented and virtual reality. Although I am really surprised in this response that there are a large number of don't know responses. Now, I'm really curious that maybe it's the segmenting companies so that those respondents don't necessarily know what other parts of the business are doing. I would really have thought that with 33% plus or minus of the respondents being managers, that they kind of know what technologies they're using. So that was an interesting showstopper for me. Well, showstopper is a bad term, but it just made me pause. Then if I look at the business output, if I go into the COVID-19 section of the survey, there's nothing really surprising. We know the areas concerned, the current economy and the supply chain interruptions. We're aware of those skilled labor shortages. There it is. Business stability for the next 12 months. We're not quite sure whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. Either way, it's going to need to be led and managed. So there's now, it's interesting. IT and cybersecurity are a 0.25%, 25% concern, where the current economy is at 52. So that wasn't really too terrible. And the COVID business impact is sort of to be expected on slide number 30. Then there's really only one more item that I looked at, and that was the region and the demographics of who responded on slide number 33. 52% of the respondents came out of the Midwest, and that is the heavy industrial and manufacturing area anymore. And I'm glad that they're responding. I think that's great. The West was very low, although I think a lot of those are more the systems and the technologies that are not necessarily uh, uh, hard coded or not necessarily physical items and what they do, and 18% in the South. So it really was heavily still responded from the Midwest. And then we get into the comments, and I really didn't take much time in the comments because although they're interesting, you can kind of get buried in them because they're exciting and you can just sort of live in them for a day and a half. Those are my thoughts, and I've babbled at you about it, but it is an exciting survey, and I think there are some things there that have given me pause, and other things that are just comforting. I'm glad we're on our way, and I'm glad the country is moving on, and I'm excited about it. So, anything that I have said that is confusing or that you'd want to clarify, Michelle?
No, that was really helpful, Grace. Thank you for that dive into the survey. A lot of good information and perspective on this year's results. So, with kind of some of those challenges in the industry, like the skilled labor and training and recruitment, is there anything you think manufacturers should be doing at this time to address some of these issues?
And it's interesting because I was speaking with someone who's out of Michigan, out of Detroit, just the other day about that, and he's giving a presentation at the ASQ World Conference. I don't know whether he'll also be at the Quality Show for the Quality Magazine. And he was saying that he is very anxious now about his employees because they are having concerns with accepting the training of the new technologies. Some of them are afraid of bouncing from a machinery approach to a technology approach, a machining to technology, and not sure they can do it. And you get the older workforce, and we saw in this survey that at least 30% of that workforce is over 55 or something. So we have a certain anxiety. And in all honesty, I'm in that age range too. And there are times when I'm not sure I want to dive into some great big new technology and what we do. So I think there's more human factors to be involved now. And our requirement in supervising and in leading a workforce has become more human factors oriented. We really need to be able to listen more to our employees. Although that's always been there, I think the level of anxiety right now in the workforce means that we as supervisors have got to be even more conscientious in how we approach our employees and how we address them with their concerns and with their desires. If we want to keep these people, we need to approach their reskilling in a way that's going to not threaten them, rather than just say, as I have unfortunately done in several previous reincarnations of my career since 1978, um, or before then, my way or the highway. If you want to cash the paycheck, you're going to do what I ask you to do. That isn't going to come across anymore. These people can retire if they want to, and we don't want them to because they've got that skill in their heads. So I do think we're having to be more and more human, even as we're going into automation.
Yeah, that's a good point. A lot of good things going on in the industry and a lot of areas of concern. So that makes sense. So just kind of looking at it big picture, is there any takeaway you would give someone just to kind of summarize what you noticed or things you think are worth paying extra attention to?
I think be optimistic. Look at the future as what you can do for yourself, but also at the same time, how you can show your value to the company. How can you help them meet the skills needs and the gaps that they have? Certainly, many of us or our younger generation are so focused on what they can do for themselves and the responsibility of the company to help them get ahead and to develop themselves. Where, yes, that's always been there with an employee development plan, but I think we need to continue to look at the sustainability of the company, and it's a partnership. It really is a two-way balanced partnership. So if we can look ahead and maybe be a little bit patient while the companies restabilize, we saw that in one of the survey responses, that the company is going to be a little anxious about stability and getting their feet back under them, either financially or as an employment picture for the next year and a half or 2 years. We've just had this huge COVID pandemic, and then right in the middle of it, we have a change in administration and a change in perspective that's making some waves in the corporate environment. And so I think patience, hold your own, and make sure that you are as valuable to your company as you can be, and listen to the company leadership on where you can best provide that value.
So yeah, I think that's all the time we have now. But thank you, Grace. I appreciate all your time and a lot of great perspectives. So thanks again.
Oh, that's wonderful, Michelle. I look forward to seeing you in October at the Quality Show. I will be there.
I'll see you then. Take care.
Thanks a lot, Michelle.